Hi, Tony Kent here, and thanks for coming. When I looked up the definition of patience just now on the internet, it said it's the capacity to accept or tolerate delay, trouble, or suffering without getting angry or upset. Well, for me, the key here is to tolerate delays without getting upset, which for me is not always easy to do. I'm someone who has and still has a lot of impatience. And I'm really quite impatient about so many things. The struggle for me is that this impatience has also served me well because I like to get things done quickly. And impatience has helped me to make decisions really fast and to do things without hesitating. So I was watching this TV series last night called The Lincoln Lawyer, and one of the characters in the series said, if you focus too much on the future, it can cause anxiety. If you dwell on the past, it can make you depressed. So it's better to be in the moment. I think that the outcome of choices made in the moment can vary, and they'll vary depending on whether you decide quickly or exercise patience. We live in such a sales orientated world and we get overwhelmed with buy now messages or lose your chance. Well, here's something interesting that I learned. To be truly patient, we have to have the ability to delay gratification, something that's always been a challenge for me and something that I'm also not very good at. Impulse helps me spring into action and accomplish a lot. And for me, once I start something, it's harder for me to stop it than it is to start something once the impulse is gone. Back in the 60s, there was an interesting study that was done, and it was called the Marshmallow Study. And it involved a Stanford researcher named Walter Mischel and about 300 kids who were put one at a time into a room, and a marshmallow was placed on the table in front of them. And they were told that if they could not eat this marshmallow in the next 15 minutes, then they would get a second marshmallow. Well, what was interesting was that only about 20% of the children were able to resist the immediate gratification. And now 80% were unable to do so. But the study went on, and 12 years later, the same children were tracked down. The teenagers now, who were in their 20%, had a higher grade average, higher SAT scores, and they were judged to be more socially advanced. Then 20 years passed. The kids were now 40, and the 20% who had resisted the temptation had achieved higher academic achievement, more career advancement, greater earning power, more relationship satisfaction, and a lower body mass index, i.e., that's better health. Another 10 years went by, and now using real time, non invasive brain scans, a technician could look at the subject's brain and then predict with complete accuracy whether that person had eaten the marshmallow 50 years prior or not. So the first conclusion is that the ability to delay gratification plays a big part in deterring how successful we're going to be in virtually every part of our lives. Now, my spiritual guide, CD, always said, don't eat the apple in one bite. This ability to delay gratification is hardwired into us, at least by the age of 5, maybe even earlier. But people process things differently and in different parts of the brain. Some in the prefrontal cortex, which is the executive function part of the brain. And this is the one in which people can look at an action in the present and see that the execution of that action will produce a result that they can already determine what it will be in the future. But the other 80%, they pass things through the back of the brain, something called the ventral striata, which is a more primitive portion of the brain. And this is where they made their decisions from. Unlike the 20% who process through the prefrontal lobe, they cannot determine that the execution of that action will produce a result that they can already determine to be positive in the future. They also pass their decisions through a filter that's called ESP, which is it easy? Is it safe? Is it pleasurable? An example could be someone like me who's in the 80s who wants to lose weight and is presented with a donut. So you ask yourself, is it easy to eat? Well, yeah. Is it safe? Yeah. Is it pleasurable? Yeah. So, of course, with all three of them being positive, they eat the donut. The 20% base their decision on what would be the outcome, which would be they'd gain weight, which is the opposite of what they want to do. So they don't eat the donut. The two groups are simply wired differently. So when it comes time for you to make a decision, are you someone with patience? You know, some things, and sometimes we start things that we know take patience. When we plant a fruit tree, for instance, we know that we're going to have to wait if we want to become an Olympic champion. We know it takes time and hours upon hours of training. Just today alone, I had well over a dozen emails saying if I started this program, this particular program they were promoting, I'd be making 10 grand a day by the end of the first month. Well, this can be possible, but more likely it's improbable. We can satisfy an immediate desire to get to the top of Mount Everest by using a helicopter, but the climbing Everest step by step, even though it would take a lot more effort, time, and ability, it would in the end be much more beneficial for someone passionate about mountain climbing. So there are many ways to approach things and many choices to make. One of the great values of diversity is that from diversity, one can find unity. For instance, the union of male and female can create a new life, not just in the form of creating a baby, but in the creation of a bigger heart within oneself that's more capable of loving. This can change a life. I have found that there can be a tremendous benefit from being able to know within the deeper part of our being whether patience or impatience is the best choice in a moment, because both have advantages and both have disadvantages. I like to choose whichever one feels most in alignment with my purpose in life, which will further my purpose the most, which will make me feel better doing it. More about this later in another video. But thanks for your attention, and please feel free to share your thoughts on this as we can learn so much from each other. And feel free to post any questions. Many thanks and many blessings.